Hello, everybody. I have to show you. I went to print out my paper, and this is the paper it printed out on because Max played a joke on me, and he copied his hand and then put it in the printer for the next person. So I had to show you guys that funny thing. I think it's probably...
I wanted to do that. I purposely did that.
You're so funny. So, I don't know if we can see it very well on here. So, we're going to do it on this one. But I just thought you guys would get a laugh.
No.
Oh, no, Max, we have to. But Max did bring, he picked out a little guy. Max, what's this guy's name?
You pick it.
Me pick it? Should we call him, what do you guys think he should be named? Should we call him Pedro? Pedro, are you going to come help us do our sentences? It's backwards. It's upside down. All right, Max, we got to get started.
No.
Yes.
I'm keeping this here.
Can you guys see it okay? No. We got to do the other one. So we can see
No.
that. Well, we're going to put that one away.
Okay.
Okay, Pedro. Here we go. Ooh, we could call him Balboas. He's an explorer. You see this little loopy thing? He's going to go catch some cattle with that. All right, let's wrangle in this one. Balboas explored. Who or what is this sentence about? Balboas, right there. Very good. So what is it? It is the subject. What is being said about Balboas? Subject now.
Balboas explored.
Balboas explored. That is a verb. Can you act it out? Yes, you can, and it is a verb. But not all verbs you can act out, but generally if you can act it out, it is a verb. Usually. Of course, I just thought of some exceptions. But for you younger children, just think if you can act it out, it's a verb. Can you explore? You absolutely can. That makes it a verb. How many of you have explored before? Maybe your backyard, maybe a forest, something like that. Oh yes, the woods are our playground. Subject, noun, verb.
Wait.
Okay, now I want to see. Oh, Max wants us to have a boat as well. Okay, well maybe we'll sail to the next one. I want you to pause the video and see if you can diagram it by yourself. Okay, ready, go. Pause the video. Okay, here we go. How'd you do? Did your line look like this? Where's our subject? Oh dear, my pen is running out. Balboa. Los canones de Balboa caused quite the commotion. Here's our verb. So the reason we have this line going all the way through is because it signifies, it distinguishes between the subject and the verb of a sentence. Okay, now we're going to go jump on our boat. Oh, we have a Roman soldier. Hello, Roman soldier. I'm in charge here. Goodbye. It's just me, Balboas. And hey, get away. Let's get on our ship and go to the next one. Ooh, Magellan. This is one of my favorite parts of the song. It sounds really cool. A sailor and a soldier too is Ferdinand Magellan. Here we go. Who or what is this sentence about? Magellan, subject, noun. Oh, we forgot to read the sentence. Oh, since they're all read, let's read it together. Ready? Magellan traveled the world. Who or what is this sentence about? Magellan, subject, noun. What is being said about Magellan? Magellan traveled. Verb. Magellan traveled who or where? Magellan traveled world, right? Now I'm going to, you're going to see the difference between this one, and Magellan traveled the world, and Brave Magellan traveled around the world. You're going to see the difference, how what words we put in a sentence matter, and they can actually change what different words do. Magellan traveled who or what? World. Does world replace Magellan? Nope. Does it describe Magellan? No. D-O, label, verb, tentative. The, article, adjective. Hopefully you know that by now. Okay, now let's Draw our picture of our sentence. Magellan, he goes in the subject. What goes in the verb part? Traveled. So to review, what does verb transitive mean? It means it's transferring action to something else. The world is receiving the action of being traveled. I know that sounds kind of funny, but Magellan traveled world. Now, why is this stick straight up and not slanted backwards? Because world does not describe or rename Magellan. It's just its own word. All right, where are we going to put the under Magellan, traveled, or world? What is it describing? Oh, I love diagramming because it's like showing pictures of sentences. And it helps you think about where things belong. Okay, very good. Let's read this together. Brave Magellan traveled around the world. Now this is going to be a little bit different because we have this little word here, around. That's going to change things up a bit. Okay, Mr. Balboas. Okay, I get it. Let's go. That around is going to change everything. It's not going to make this a direct object anymore. It's going to be, well, I'm not going to give it away. So here we go. Brave Magellan traveled around the world. Who or what is this sentence about? Magellan. Subject now. What is being said about Magellan? Magellan traveled. Verb. Now, can we say Magellan traveled the world? Is that what it says? No, it doesn't. What's around? What is around? What part of speech is around? I'll give you a hint. Aboard, about, across, after, against, along, amid, among, around, at, atop. Oh, among, around. Okay, remember our triangle? It shows like in relation to, okay, around. Remember our triangle and our parts of speech? It's not in or outside or in or into. It's around. So around is a preposition. Okay, so we're going to have a prepositional phrase here. Around what? World. Object of the preposition. Now remember, object of the prepositions have to be what? Nouns or verbs? Which one? Nouns. The article adjective. Guys, sorry there's kind of a lot of background noise. Okay, now what about brave? Who or what is brave describing? Is it describing brave traveled? No. It's describing brave Magellan. So this is going to be an adjective because it's describing a noun. If it were describing a verb, then it would be an adverb. So what kind of verb is this? Is it transferring action to anything like it did up here? Traveled the world? It's actually not, because the world is part of a prepositional phrase now, which is kind of cut out from the core of our sentence. So it's intransitive. It's not going anywhere. All right, now let's try to diagram this. Okay, what's gonna go here? Magellan. What's going to go here? Our verb. Traveled. Okay. Now where are we going to put brave? It's describing Magellan, so it's going to go under brave. And we're going to capitalize it. Wait, did I say it's going to go under brave? That didn't make sense. So we're going to capitalize it because it's the beginning of our sentence. Now where are we going to put around the world? It's describing where he traveled and answers how, when, where, why, how often. So it's an adverbial prepositional phrase. It's like an adverb, but a whole phrase that's an adverb. So we're going to put it under the verb. Around world. And the. All right, Balboas, how did we do? Oh, so good, so good. You could be explorers yourselves. Too bad there's no continent left to explore. But did you know there are Indonesian islands yet to be explored? There's thousands of them. Oh, wouldn't that be great? You can actually rent an Indonesian island. And maybe the Arctic and Antarctic could be explored, but whew, that would be way too chilly for me. I would rather not go there. I would have to bring lots of coats and eat with penguins. No, thank you. Okay, let's go on to the next one. Ooh, let's read it together. We can discover stories about our ancestors. Okay. Is there anything we notice here? Any prepositional phrases or conjunctions? Any conjunctions? For and or but or yet though? Or which or who? Or because? No conjunctions here. It's just one sentence. Okay. Any prepositional phrases? Okay. So, where were we again? Prepositional phrases. Do you see anything here that describes where something happened or something in relation to something? That's kind of a hard question. Anybody see any prepositions? There's one right here, about. That's all right. About is a preposition. So where's the object of the preposition? There always has to be object of the preposition. About what? Ancestors. Good, that's our object of the preposition. And what's our? What kind, how many, which, or whose? Whose ancestors? Our ancestors. Adjective. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. We can discover stories. Who or what is the sentence about? We. Subject pronoun. What is being said about we? We can discover. Oh, this is called a verb phrase where we have more than one verb in a sentence because this one is a helping verb. This one likes to help another. This one likes to help another. It says we can discover. Yes, it says we can discover. So it's helping it. We would not necessarily, you could maybe say we discover stories. We could say that, but can discover is maybe a little more accurate. We can discover, or I will help you. I will help. I am a verb. I will help. Very good. Okay, so this is called a helping verb, and discover is our main verb. We can discover who or what. Stories. Do stories replace we? Nope. Do stories describe we? No. D-O. Label verb transitive. So what is receiving the action of being discovered? Stories. Right? Okay, so let's diagram this one. For you older children, for our challenge students, for some of you this may not be too challenging. So I challenge you instead to write one down here. Can you write one with an indirect object? Do you remember what that means? Let's see if you can. Here we go. We're going to capitalize it because it's the beginning of the sentence. Can discover. Now, this line's going to go straight up because it's not repeating or reflecting our subject. Okay, now this prepositional phrase about our ancestors, what is it modifying? Is it describing stories or can discover? Is it saying how we can discover? Not really. Or is it describing stories? What kind of stories? Well, what kind, how many, which, or whose? It's describing stories. What kind of stories we can discover? So this means it's an adjectival. This one here was an adverbial clause because it was modifying the verb. This is an adjectival prepositional phrase. So there we go. Very, very good. Now let's talk a little bit. Let's go back and look at our sentences. And we have several different kinds of sentences. We have a simple sentence, which means we just have a subject and a verb. Usually, the verb is intransitive. It doesn't transfer any action. Then we have compound which has a simple, actually, this can have any kind of verb. I should just, it has to have a subject and a verb plus a conjunction and a subject and a verb. Can you think of any examples of that? So you could say, Magellan traveled the world and he navigated well. Well, that was kind of a bad sentence, but Magellan navigated well and he traveled the world. If I just said Magellan navigated well and traveled the world, I'm not giving a new subject for the second half. But if these two clauses can stand on their own, then that means it's compound. There's two individual. In fact, I'm going to draw a picture of this, okay? So, with a simple sentence, we have just a little house. Do you see that? This is our beautiful little house. It's going to have our subject and our verb that live there together, and they're so happy. Now, a compound sentence. I should describe maybe a complex one first. I'm going to describe a complex one first. Okay, well, I'm going to do compound first. Sorry, guys. Okay, a compound sentence is where you have two, I was going to say identical, but they're not identical. You have two houses, there's a subject and a verb living together, and they're so happy, they're married. And plus, you have, they're hooked together like this, maybe a little walkway, another entire house. So it has a kitchen, it has bedrooms, it has everything. It could be its own living space, and it has another subject and verb. And they are happily married, and they're so happy together. They're joined together by this little hallway called a conjunction. Okay, so this could be a fan, boys. Well, some of those are, there's different kinds of conjunctions, actually. Not all of these are actually exactly coordinating conjunctions. Some are subordinating conjunctions. But and is a really good example. Now, a complex sentence is, so let's give an example of this, okay? Nephi, okay, let's say Nephi prayed. Okay, do you have a subject and a verb here? Yes, you do. Okay, let's do Nephi prayed, if I can spell, and he saw a vision. Okay, so do you see, could he saw a vision stand on its own? It could. It totally could. Could Nephi prayed stand on its own? Yep, so here's our first house. Here's our second house. And here's our little hallway. In this case, it's going to be a really long hallway. Connecting them together. I could break up the hallway, right? Get rid of it. And put a period here and capitalize this. And then they would be two independent clauses, right? So here's a clause, and they're both independent of each other. They don't depend on each other. You could cut that out, and they could stand on their own. Okay, now complex is where you add what are called subordinating clauses. Okay, complex is where you have a house. See this? Where there's a subject and a verb. So happy together. But it has something else. It has a garage. Do you see that? It has a garage. Can a garage stand by itself? No, not usually. I mean, it could, but generally garages belong somewhere. You can't live in a garage, right? This garage is dependent on the house. So you could have a subject that says, Nephi prayed because he wanted answers, right? So because is also a conjunction, but it's a subordinating conjunction, meaning everything that follows it is dependent on this part. I couldn't just say because he wanted answers, right? I couldn't just say that. He prayed. We have a subject and a verb here, but it's dependent on Nephi prayed. Does that make sense? I'm trying to think of some other examples. You can also have, so with complex sentences, you can get an independent clause plus a dependent clause plus, we're going to put a little and sign here, another independent clause. See that? You can kind of make all kinds of combinations here. Nephi prayed because he wanted answers and God told him to build a boat, right? That would be Nephi prayed because he wanted answers and God told him to build a boat. Could you say God told him to build a boat and have it stand on its own? You could. You could get rid of that wall and have it stand by itself, right? Just get rid of that. But if we combine it with a and sign, then we have, then we make it into a sentence. Another dependent clause is who, when we use who, which clause. Who, which clauses. For example, if we say Nephi, who was faithful, prayed. Okay, now this, who was faithful, we have a subject pronoun, because it's referring to Nephi. Who was faithful, it is technically a subject and a verb, but it can't stand on its own. Who was faithful, right? So that's when it's also more like a garage. Nephi prayed is the actual core of our sentence. That's that stands alone, right? That's our independent clause. This is a dependent clause. It hangs on this one. It relies on that. Does that make sense, you guys? Okay, so there's 3 kinds of sentences. Simple, compound, complex. Simple, compound, complex. Simple, compound, complex. So let's look at these. Balboa's explored. Is that simple or compound? It's simple. There's just a subject and a verb. It's one house. Magellan traveled the world. Is that simple, compound, or complex? Are there 2 sentences going on joined by a conjunction? No, there's just one. Subject and verb. What about this one? Brave Magellan traveled around the world. Is around the world its own clause? No, it's just a phrase. It doesn't have a subject or a verb. So this one is just a subject and verb. It's also simple. We can discover stories about our ancestors. Again, this is just a simple sentence. So all of these are simple sentences. None of them are compound. None of them are complex. They're all simple. They just have a subject and a verb. There's no other phrase that has a subject and a verb as well. Does that make sense? Hopefully. All right. Very good, children. We will see you next week.